Hello friends, welcome to Islington Listens, wisdom from a community of faith that doesn't think the same, vote the same, or love the same, but we are trying our best to follow in the way of Jesus with compassion and hope.
The people were in exile. They had been living in Babylon for a long time. So many had gotten used to living there. Some even had jobs in the courts of the king. Daniel and his 3 friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, worked at the king's court. When they were training to work for the king allotted all the men lots of meat and drinks to make them strong. But Daniel would not defile his body with the foods the Babylonians ate. So he asked the guard over him and his friends,
"Please allow me and my friends not to eat the food that the king commands."
But the guard said, "This is the food that the king has allotted for all his servants. Why should you 4 look worse than the rest? If the king finds out, he will have my head." So Daniel replied,
"Test your servants for 10 days. Give us nothing but vegetables to eat and water to drink. Then compare us to the appearance of the young men who eat the royal food, and treat your servants according to what you see."
The guard agreed. At the end of 10 days, they looked healthier and better nourished than any of the young men who ate the royal food. So the guard took away their choice food and wine and gave them vegetables instead. God blessed Daniel and his friends with learning, wisdom, and skill. One day, the king of Babylon had a dream. He was troubled by it, and when his wise men could not tell him what it meant, he ordered to have them killed. But Daniel knew what it meant, and he said to the king,
"Do not execute the wise men of Babylon. Take me to the king. I will interpret his dream. My king, in this dream you saw a shining figure that blew away in the wind. Your dream means that in time, what will happen is the kingdoms of the world will fall, but God's kingdom will last forever."
On another day, the king made a huge golden statue of a person. He commanded the people to bow down when they heard special music and worship the image. The people who did not obey would be thrown into a fiery furnace. Daniel's friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, would not worship the statue, so they were thrown into the blazing furnace. The king saw the 3 of them standing in the furnace, and a 4th figure appeared with them. The king called them out of the fire, and not a hair on their head was burned up. The king was amazed and gave them places of honor in his court. Daniel and his friends continued to serve the king for many years until the kingdom was overthrown by the Medes and Persians. Daniel was made a ruler along with 2 others to oversee the kingdom. The other 2 rulers did not like Daniel because they knew that King Darius liked Daniel the best, and they thought Daniel might one day rule over them. So they tricked the king into making a rule they knew Daniel would not be able to follow. Everyone had to pray only to King Darius or be cast into the lion's den. They knew Daniel worshiped the one true God, so he would never pray to a king. One day, Daniel was caught in his room facing Jerusalem praying to God. They brought him to the king. The king liked Daniel, but a law was a law. Daniel was thrown into the den of lions. The king worried about Daniel. In the morning, he ran to the lion's den and called out to Daniel. And Daniel replied,
"My king, I am fine. God sent an angel to close the mouths of the lions."
The king was filled with gladness, and the men who accused Daniel were thrown into the lion's den. Daniel had many dreams that troubled him. He prayed often for his people to be liberated and for understanding of his dreams. One night, Daniel had a vision of a man dressed in linen with a belt of gold around his waist. Daniel fell to the ground before him. A hand touched him and raised him up. The figure like a man said to Daniel, "Do not be afraid. Be strong and courageous. I have come to help you understand your visions." He told Daniel that the power of the kings would come to an end. He explained that this time would be difficult, but that God will stay close to God's people and deliver them from all danger. They will live with God forever. So the story that we just heard from Daniel, he lived a pretty brave life. And that wasn't even half of his story, really. So we're very lucky to have Daniel here with us today. And we're going to hear a little bit more about his story. So I'll ask you all to join me in welcoming Daniel. Let's give Daniel a round of applause.
Hey, where's the
Hello,
spread?
Daniel. Take a seat. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us today, Daniel. I know that you have lived a very brave life, and something that you might not know is that we have all been learning about bravery for the past several weeks, and we were really inspired by your story, and so we wanted to ask you a little bit more in depth about some of the things that you've faced in your life. So first of all, I wanted to ask you about your time growing up in exile. What was that like for you?
Well, I was born in Jerusalem and taken to exile. I was young. I was selected to work for the king.
Right. And when you were training for the king, what was that like?
Well, it was hard because the people around me weren't doing the same as I was. Because, for instance, we had to eat the king's food, which my people were not supposed to have, so I asked the guard if me and my friends could not.
If you could eat different food, right. And that guard probably thought that that was kind of a crazy request. It seemed like they were feeding you very well, they were giving you meat, they were giving you wine, lots to drink, and you asked to just eat vegetables. That must have been very strange to him and kind of countercultural. I would say that that was a pretty brave request of you in that moment. I think also the Babylonians saw some special gifts in you. Can you tell us a little bit about some of those gifts that made you so valuable to the king?
Yes, I was given a gift of interpreting dreams. When I heard the wise ones were going to be killed for not being able to interpret one of the king's dreams, I had to help. I told the king the meaning, and I saved them.
Wow. And you probably could have been killed yourself just for going to the king, seeing his temper.
Yeah, I
So
could.
that was very brave of you as well, to step in and save those people. And you had some friends also who had some pretty brave things that they did too. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the things that your friends did?
Yeah, because you see, what happened is the king had made a huge statue and everyone had to bow down to it, or they would be thrown into this big, huge furnace that was on fire. Not the kind that were like electric, but like the old-fashioned. They were just fire, fire, fire. And so they didn't bow down. So they got thrown into the fiery furnace.
Right, and what did they say before they were thrown into the furnace?
They said, God will save us, or he will not. But will not bow down to anyone else.
Wow, that was a real act of faith, because they didn't know if God was going to save them or not, but they still held true to what they believed was the right thing to do. But didn't you also have an experience like that?
Well, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego really showed me what true bravery looked like. Even though the law had passed to play to the king, I still prayed to God, and I knew others wanted me dead.
Mm-hmm. And so the day that you were caught praying to God and you were thrown into the lion's den, what was that like for you?
Well, when I was thrown into the den, I was terrified. I knew I was about to die, a horrible, painful death, but it was incredible. They didn't touch me. I knew God was with me.
Wow, that's an amazing story. And God closed the mouths of lions so you weren't hurt.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you got a good night's sleep.
No!
Were there any times that you wished that you didn't have some of the gifts that God gave you, like interpreting dreams?
Well, there were many times I wished God had picked someone else. There were things that I didn't want to hear, and especially there were things I didn't want to hear.
What were some of those things?
Well, you see, the prophet Jeremiah had said we would be in exile for 70 years. But I knew it had been longer than that. I didn't understand why we weren't free. But then, an angel came to me and said, Jeremiah meant 70 times 7, 490 years. I knew I would never see my home again.
Wow. You would never see your home again. You would be in exile for your whole life. And I'm sure that as someone who was always listening to God and doing the right thing, you probably felt like you just kind of deserved that reward.
Of course, I was distraught.
Right. And how did you accept that hard news?
Well, I received another vision. This time it was more like a man. He came and comforted me. He lifted up my chin, and he had good news for me.
What was that news? That you would be liberated and you would get to go home?
Not just me, not just my people, all people. He said we'd be put into one big kingdom of God forever.
Wow. But I thought that you weren't going to be liberated in your lifetime.
That's not something I fully understand, but I choose to hope for a good future.
Wow. So you don't know what that future might be, but you choose to hope for it anyway. I feel like you're teaching me that of all the brave things that you've done in your life, maybe just hoping is the bravest thing of all.
Maybe it is.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Daniel. I really appreciate you sharing more of your story. And I hear that you have a book out.
Yes. I've got a memoir out. It's called Daniel. And it's out where all books are sold and on the Bible app.
Oh, perfect. There you go. You can read the full story on the Bible app or anywhere books are sold. Well, I really look forward to reading the whole story. And thank you once again for coming on. Give it up for Daniel, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening, friends. For other ways to connect, go to islingtonunited.org. May God's wisdom and love keep finding you.